It was a warm summer evening when the Thompson family boarded the luxury cruise ship, the Meridian. Sarah Thompson, a mother of two, had promised her daughter Emily and husband David that this trip would be the highlight of their summer. A week at sea, sunshine, good food, and quality time together. The perfect family vacation. The ship was grand, a towering structure of polished glass and steel, offering panoramic views of the sea, multiple restaurants, and all kinds of entertainment. Emily, only 8 years old, ran excitedly through the hallways, dragging her father behind her as they explored the decks. Sarah couldn't help but smile at the sight. Her little girl was growing up too fast. The evening came, and the Thompson family was ready to relax. Dinner was served in the elegant dining room, and as they ate, laughter and chatter filled the air. The evening went as planned, with the family enjoying each other's company and discussing what they would do the next day. Emily had made plans to visit the kids' club while Sarah and David planned to relax by the pool. Everything seemed perfect, but fate, as it often does, had different plans. Around midnight, a sudden, powerful storm hit. It came out of nowhere, clouds swirling in ominous formations, the wind howling as though it were alive. Waves grew taller, crashing against the ship with a violence that startled everyone aboard. The ship lurched violently as the captain and crew scrambled to keep control. Emily was still awake when the storm began. She had been lying in bed, reading a book, when the lights flickered. She looked out the window to see the sea churn, the black waters now illuminated by lightning. The ship rocked violently again, and she stumbled to the door of her cabin, unsure what was happening. She found her parents in the hallway, looking equally disoriented. Sarah was trying to reassure Emily, but even she could see the fear in her husband's eyes. David gripped Sarah's hand tightly as the ship shuddered again. "Stay close," David said, his voice unsteady. "We need to get to the lower deck. The storm's making the ship unstable." Sarah nodded, but as they moved toward the stairwell, the lights went out completely. The ship's emergency alarms blared, making it impossible to hear anything over the noise. The power flickered back on for just a moment, casting a brief light across the dark corridor. That was when they saw it. A massive crack appeared in the wall, just above the hallway door. Water began to pour in, flooding the floor. Panic set in. The Thompson family ran, desperate to escape the rising water. The crew was shouting, urging passengers to evacuate to the lifeboats. David grabbed Emily, lifting her into his arms as Sarah clung to his side. They stumbled down the hallway, struggling to keep their footing as the ship continued to shake. It was chaos, passengers running, water rising, alarms blaring. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest, a sense of dread filling every part of her being. Then, a loud crash. The ship's hull split with a deafening sound. And the next thing Sarah knew, she was falling. The ship tilted at a severe angle, and everything around her was thrown into disarray. She lost her grip on David's arm. She screamed his name, but the sound of rushing water drowned her out. The last thing Sarah saw was the horror in David's eyes as the water swept him and Emily away. The next morning, Sarah awoke in a hospital bed. Her body ached, her head spinning. The first thing she remembered was the storm, the crash, and then nothing. A nurse entered the room, looking concerned. "You're awake. Thank goodness. How are you feeling?" Sarah's heart raced as she sat up, her hands shaking. "My husband, my daughter, where are they? Are they okay?" The nurse's expression faltered. She hesitated before speaking. "I'm afraid. There was a tragic accident last night. The ship went down. Many didn't survive, including your husband and daughter." The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She felt the room spin, her breath catching in her throat. "No, no, that can't be true. They were right there with me. We were." But her words stopped as she choked on her tears. The nurse gently helped her lie back down. "They've been searching, but your family, they didn't make it." Sarah's world crumbled. The pain of loss overwhelmed her. David and Emily, the two people she loved most in the world, were gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. Her life, once full of joy and hope, now felt empty and hollow. Weeks passed in a blur. Sarah returned home, but everything felt wrong. The house was too quiet. There were too many empty spaces. Emily's room, the family photos on the walls, the places where they used to laugh together. She couldn't bring herself to look at the photos of her family. She couldn't bear the thought of them. of how happy they were just days ago, when the world still made sense. Sarah went through the motions. She attended therapy sessions, visited the wreckage of the ship for closure, and even met with the investigators, who were still piecing together the details of the accident. But nothing seemed to make a difference. The world had lost all meaning. 5 years passed. Sarah moved to a new city, changed her job, and tried to rebuild her life. But nothing could fill the void left by the loss of her family. It was as if she were a different person now, someone she didn't recognize. One Friday evening, Sarah decided to go out for a drink. She had been working hard all week, and for once, she wanted to do something for herself. She walked into a local club, the bass of the music vibrating through the floor, as colorful lights flickered overhead. It wasn't her usual scene, but she thought it might be good to get out and forget her worries for a while. The club was packed, people dancing and laughing, a blur of faces and flashing lights. Sarah made her way to the bar, ordered a glass of wine, and stood quietly to the side, observing the crowd. That was when she saw her, a woman on the dance floor, moving gracefully to the rhythm of the music. She was tall, with long brown hair, and she looked strikingly familiar. Sarah froze, her heart stopping. It couldn't be. She was seeing things. She blinked and rubbed her eyes. But when she looked again, the woman was still there, her movements fluid and confident. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. That face, those eyes. She had seen them before. She would never forget them. It was Emily. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each beat reverberating through her body like a drum. She couldn't look away. The woman on the dance floor, there was no mistaking it. That face, those eyes, the shape of her smile, everything about her was familiar. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she wondered if she was imagining things. She had seen grief, sadness, and loss for so long that surely her mind was playing tricks on her. But no, the woman wasn't just a ghost of memory. She was real. It had been 5 long years since the accident, and yet, there she was, Emily, alive, standing in front of Sarah in the middle of a crowded club, dancing as though she had never been lost at sea. Her mind raced, and Sarah's feet seemed frozen to the floor. She watched Emily, or the woman she thought was Emily, moving effortlessly with the crowd. The soft glow of the club lights shimmered off her hair, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to blur into the background. All Sarah could see was her daughter, the daughter she had lost. Could it really be her? There were so many questions swirling in Sarah's mind. How could this be? If Emily was here, why hadn't anyone told her? Why hadn't the authorities found her? The last she had heard, the search for survivors had come to an end with no trace of her daughter. How could she be alive and well, dancing in a club in the city? As Sarah stood there, struggling to process the impossible sight in front of her, the woman, Emily, suddenly stopped dancing and turned toward the bar. Sarah's breath hitched as their eyes met. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. Emily's eyes widened, and she blinked, clearly surprised to see someone staring at her so intensely. The shock of recognition hit Sarah all at once. She felt a rush of emotions: disbelief, joy, confusion, and, above all, fear. What was happening? Was this a trick? Was she hallucinating? Could this woman really be her daughter? Before Sarah could even move or speak, Emily's face shifted from confusion to something else, something guarded. She took a step back, her eyes now scanning Sarah with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. Her posture stiffened, as though she was considering whether to approach or run. Sarah couldn't breathe. The woman she had just seen dancing, her daughter, her beautiful, vibrant daughter, was standing in front of her. And yet, she was a stranger. The last time Sarah had seen Emily, she had been a child, full of innocence and joy. This woman, standing before her, had a coldness in her eyes that Sarah couldn't understand. "Emily," Sarah whispered, almost afraid to say the name, afraid it would shatter the fragile moment between them. The woman blinked, then hesitated before replying, her voice low and careful. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake. Sarah's legs began to feel weak, and she had to steady herself by grabbing the edge of the bar. "Please." Sarah's voice broke. "Please, I know you. You're my daughter. Emily. You were lost. We thought you were gone. We." The woman's eyes narrowed, and she looked around, almost as if searching for an escape route. There was no recognition in her gaze. There was no sign of the little girl Sarah had held in her arms for so many years. I think you have the wrong person. The woman said quickly, backing away slightly. I don't know you. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The words were like a slap to her face. How could Emily not remember her? How could she not know who she was? But, but I'm your mother, Sarah pleaded, her voice shaking. Emily, we went on that cruise together. The storm, the accident. You were with your father and… The woman took another step back, her face becoming increasingly tense. I told you. I don't know you, she said, her tone now sharp, almost dismissive. Sarah's heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. Was this a dream? Was this some cruel joke? Was it possible that this woman wasn't Emily at all? That her mind had just conjured the image of her daughter? But no, she couldn't accept that. There was no way she was imagining this. She could feel the weight of the moment. The connection she had felt in her heart. When she first laid eyes on the woman was real. This was her daughter. She was sure of it. The way Emily moved, the way she held herself, the subtle way she had looked at her, it was all Emily. Sarah reached out, instinctively, desperate. Please, Emily. Please, just listen to me. The woman's face grew harder, and she turned on her heel, starting to walk away. I'm sorry, she called over her shoulder. But I really don't have time for this. Sarah's heart sank as she watched the woman slip into the crowd, her figure vanishing behind the flashing lights and dancing bodies. She couldn't just let her go. Not like this. Not when Sarah was so sure that it was Emily. She had to know the truth. She had to understand why her daughter was alive and why she had no memory of the life they had shared. With trembling hands, Sarah grabbed her purse and quickly moved after the woman. She wasn't going to let her disappear again, not when she was so close. She couldn't lose her a second time. As she pushed through the crowd, Sarah's mind raced. What was going on? Why had Emily, if it really was her, reacted that way? Why was she so distant, so cold? Sarah's throat tightened, and panic started to set in again. What had happened to her daughter all these years? Why had she been left with no answers? Nothing but questions. She turned a corner of the club, hoping to spot the woman, but there was no sign of her. The club was full of people now, and the music had gotten louder, drowning out Sarah's thoughts. She stood there, searching the sea of faces, praying to see a sign. Then, from behind, she heard a voice. It wasn't the woman's voice. This was something different. Ma'am. Sarah turned around to see a tall, well-dressed man standing in front of her. His expression was polite, but there was something in his eyes that made Sarah freeze. I'm afraid you're going to have to leave, he said calmly, his voice steady. You've caused a disturbance, and I've been asked to escort you out. Sarah's mind went blank for a moment, overwhelmed by the rush of emotions. But I just saw my daughter. She's here. I need to talk to her. Please, I need to know where she's gone. The man didn't react at first. He just stood there, watching her, as though weighing her words. I'm sorry, but there's no one here by that name. Sarah's heart dropped. She felt the blood drain from her face. No, she's here. I saw her. She's real. The man's expression remained unchanged. Ma'am, please. Let's go outside. Sarah's mind raced, her heart pounding like a drumbeat in her chest. She could barely focus on the man standing in front of her, his face cold and impassive. The words he had just spoken, there's no one here, by that name, felt like a slap across her face. The room seemed to close in around her, the flashing lights of the club becoming a blur, the booming music now just a dull hum in the background. She had seen her daughter. She was certain of it. The woman in front of her, Emily, had looked just like her daughter. There was no mistaking it. Sarah had felt a deep, undeniable connection the moment their eyes had met. She couldn't be imagining it. Couldn't be. But now, with this man's firm voice and cold expression, doubt crept in like a shadow, filling the space between them. Was it possible that she had been mistaken? Was it possible that her grief had twisted her perception, making her see things that weren't there? No. Sarah refused to believe that. Her daughter had been alive. She was alive, and she needed to find her. You're lying, Sarah said, her voice shaking but filled with a newfound resolve. I saw her. She's real. I need to talk to her. I have to know why any of this, is happening. The man didn't flinch at Sarah's outburst. Instead, he took a step forward, his hand lightly resting on her arm as he gently guided her toward the exit. His touch was firm but not aggressive, more like someone trained to de-escalate situations. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're mistaken, he said again, his voice smooth and rehearsed. There's no one here by that.